Now, let's begin with the analysis of the equities market and review. The NGX All-Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 0.55% to close the week at 53,201.38 basis points and 28.6 trillion naira respectively. All other indices finished lower with the exception of the NGX 30, NGX Oil and Gas, and the NGX Industrial Goods. A total turnover of 1.8 billion shares worth 19.4 billion naira in 21,723 deals was traded this week by investors on the floor of the exchange, in contrast to a total of 28.7 billion shares valued at 209.06 billion naira that exchanged hands last week in 23,688 deals. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.173 billion shares valued at 12.4 billion naira traded in 10,657 deals, thus contributing 64.07% and 64.04% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. The conglomerates industry followed with 419.1 million shares worth 607.703 million naira in 1,095 deals. The third place was the consumer goods industry with a turnover of 69.68 million shares worth 2.7 billion naira in 3,158 deals. Trading in the top three equities, namely First Bank of Nigeria Holdings PLC, Transnational Corporation PLC, and United Bank for Africa PLC, measured by volume, accounted for 1.136 billion shares worth 8.3 billion naira in 2,906 deals, contributing 62.08% and 42.7% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. Well, to better understand what happened at the equities market last week, we have Mr. Laide Banu. He is a research analyst with Atlas Portfolio, and he joins us now via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Banu.
Good morning, Mabalane. Thank you for having me.
Good morning to you. Now, let's have your assessment of the capital market last week, just before the democracy holiday.
Yeah, the equity market last week grew by 0.55% to reverse the previous session negative sentiment where the market declined by 2.18%. So, but last week the market reversed that particular sentiment. So, despite that, okay, the market grew in 3 of the 5 trading sessions last week, and this was driven by the investors' positive sentiments towards the likes of the Coinline, the MTN, Presco, ELC, and WAPCO itself. So the market last week was positive one for investors.
That's some cheering news, isn't it? But let's look at the fact that the financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.173 billion shares valued at 12.4 billion naira traded at 10,657 deals, and of course contributing 64.07% and 64.04% to the total equity turnover volume and value respectively. What do you make of these figures?
Yeah, the financial sector being the most traded sector in the market last week was a reflect of that the investor in the past has been believed that, okay, the financial sector has the most liquid stock. If you look at the likes of the banks and the insurance companies, most of them, they trade at high volume of about 5 million, 4 million on average on a daily basis. So that has been the investors' reaction. I mean, the liquidity on that particular investor. But the sector last week declined. The banking and the insurance sector declined last week, and this was impacted by the no positive catalyst regarding to that particular sector. And if you remember recently when the CBN increased the MPR to 13%, some investors have been taking profit from that from the markets generally, and this also affected the financial sector itself.
Now, let's look at the top 5 gainers. We see Global Spectrum Energy leading that list with a gain of 0.25% to close at 2.75%, and then corn oil following suit with a gain of 2.9% to close at 32 naira, and then Fitsin also gained about 1.05% to, or rather 1 naira 5 kobo to close at 12 naira. What would you describe as the reason for these gains in these stocks?
In these stocks, majority of the positive sentiment in that has been a result of the investors' reaction to some kind of activities happening in the finance of those companies, and also in the global markets, global economy itself. If you look at Global Spectrum Energy Services gaining 10%, their previous year financial statement, they had a very decline in their profits, but looking at their Q1 report, they had a very fantastic over 300% gain in their Q1 report compared to Q1 2021. So this give investors a bullish reaction toward that particular company itself. So, and the other one, the corn oil, generally the oil sector itself grew positively last week, and this was impacted by the impact that the global oil price in last week rose to about $123 per barrel in the global market. So investors are looking at that particular sector to book in their investments ahead of the profit.
What about Fitsin Healthcare PLC? Mr. Banu? Okay, I think Mr. Banu, if you can hear me, you've talked about the reason for the gain at Global Spectrum Energy stocks and that of corn oil, but what about that of Fitsin Healthcare PLC? That's from the health sector.
I didn't get it right.
We're talking about the top 5 gainers, and you already analyzed the reason for the gain that was recorded by Global Spectrum and that of corn oil. Of course, now I'd like you to also give us reasons for the gain in Fitsin Healthcare stocks.
Yeah, there have been low activities in the Fitsin itself, in the Fitsin stock for a while. So coming back into that particular stock is a kind of low activities in other stocks. So investors are looking at what is the alternative they can actually look into. And if the price of a particular, what we'll be noticing over a period of time is that if there is a kind of stagnant reaction for investors on a particular stock, then when there is no activity, when there is no positive catalyst in the global, in the equity market, the investors will look into a particular stock that have been like a stagnant something.
Okay.
No reaction in that particular stock. So that's what is happening on the Fitsin. That investors are looking back into that particular stock that is having low investors' reaction over the past period.
Okay, let's look at the decliners for the week, talking about Industrial and Medical Gases Nigeria PLC, which of course closed in the red, recording a 1 naira 85 kobo loss to close at 9 naira 15 kobo. And then we see EcoBank Transnational Incorporated losing 1 naira 40 kobo to close at 11 naira 10 kobo. Also followed suit by MRS Oil Nigeria PLC, losing 1 naira 60 kobo to close at 14 naira 80 kobo. Help us better understand the reason for the negative sentiment of these stocks.
Yeah, generally, what is happening in those stocks have been the profit taking. If you look at IGM, Industrial and Medical Gas Nigeria Limited, and PLC, it has been on a positive trend for a period of weeks now. So having investor booking profits from that particular stock is not a surprise. The same thing with MRS. But also the decline in ETI, EcoBank Transnational Incorporated, was as a result of the other negative, the negative impact in the banking sector generally that happened last week. So that's what is actually happening what happened to those particular stocks to have a negative reaction. So there's a lot of profit taking from it. So investors, especially in MRS, some investors invested at about 13 naira, 14 naira or so, and booking profit from 16 naira, 15 naira is not a bad idea for them from a short period.
Interesting. Let's get your prediction for today's activities. Of course, the holidays are over. Now we're getting to business.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. If you didn't get my last question, I was saying,
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Banu. Mr. Banu, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, I think there's a disconnect between the link between us and Mr. Banu, but of course we'll fix that. We're trying to look at his prediction for today's activities now that the holidays are over. Mr. Banu, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I was trying to get your prediction for today's activities now that the holidays are over.
Yeah, let me first start. Okay, this week we expect a continuous mixed reaction from investors, that some long-term investors may continue to see positive bargain hunting in the equity market, following that. Okay, some sector may be having some kind of more economic resilience in the what we call it in the equity market. So some long-term investors may be seeing some kind of positive reactions toward that. But meanwhile, in the absence of low positive catalyst in the equity markets, we may continue to see a kind of profit taking or a kind of sell-off in the equity market. But for today, so far, we begin to see a kind of profit taking. If you remember, we said Corner was the most profitable stock last week, but today we'll be seeing some kind of decline in Corner, and while some other stocks like the Capital Hotel, the CILC are on the high side gaining now. So let's.
So what would be the reason? What would be the reason? What would be responsible for the decline in corn oil stocks?
So the reason I would say is as a result of the profit taking. It was, and also some investor may be looking at the valuation of that particular company itself, saying that okay, if taking profits from it, is it a good one, or looking or investing in that particular stock is a very good one for them. They will definitely weigh their options before going for that. But so to say, the market is just about an hour trading. So any other thing can still happen between now and the next 3 hours. So let's see, look at how the market is going to react to that. But currently, as we speak, the market is on the negative side.
So what are your expectations for the week generally?
As I said earlier, we expect a mixed sentiment. So the mixed sentiment now determine how investors react to it. Is it going to be a more positive reaction or than the negative one? But we believe that this week that we definitely experience some positive outputs from the market and negative ones.
Well, that's a fine place to leave it. Thank you so much, Mr. Olaide Banu, research analyst, Atlas Portfolio Limited. Thank you for your analysis on Business Breakfast this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, have a good day now. Coming up after this break, the federal government of Nigeria has released what it called a draft code of practice to guide the operations of Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Google, TikTok, and other social media platforms in the country.